Tonight's recipient is a lifelong advocate for Black and African diasporic stories through his work as a bookseller, librarian, instructor, editor, and publisher. Here to present the Literarian this evening is 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award honoree Walter Mosley. Walter Mosley is an award-winning author of over 60 acclaimed books of fiction, including the upcoming Been Wrong So Long It Feels Like Right, as well as works of nonfiction and plays. His work has been translated into 25 languages. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage Walter Mosley.
I didn't know there was going to be music. They have it on this thing, but I'm going to read my paper. It says almost exactly the same thing. Because I always get the feeling, don't you get the feeling like when you come and they say they want to see it so they can, but just because they can put it up here so you can read it, that they really want to make sure what you're saying isn't going to embarrass anybody? Anyway, I recently had occasion to call Paul Coates a warrior publisher. The black man who traded in the term slave for enslaved. The Black Panther who was on many a hit list. The man that brought literature into prisons, literature that most people didn't and still don't know exists. Paul Coates, who virtually bled his own blood to ink his own printing presses and who worked shoulder to shoulder with world-shattering writers, editors, his own family, and those of us of the diaspora around the world. Paul Coates, who is still the only black publisher in America that prints his own books, this because he would not let our truths be bought out from under us or sabotaged. And when I say our truths, I'm not just talking about black people. I'm talking about living history that has been erased, eradicated, murdered, and then resurrected in the form of zombie lies. Paul shares information that every man, woman, and most especially every child in America, and therefore the world, must know if they want their souls to survive. Paul Coates, who will publish you when he is flush and when he is penniless. Paul Coates, who decides what he will publish based on the quality of the truth of that work. Paul Coates, a man who believes in you even if you don't believe in yourself, who believes in you even if he doesn't like you. These beliefs are grounded in his faith in social evolution, not personal gain. Paul Coates, the warrior publisher, cannot be bought out or put out of business. How many of us can say that? How many people in this room love every minute of self-sacrifice? How many people pile up the debt to pay off the weightier obligations of our people? How many can be that serious, that political, and still find time to laugh and love and keep the faith? Paul has lived a life of service. Most people in the modern world are confused and befuddled because their hearts and minds are filled with so much misinformation that most of what they see and believe isn't even there. They say, I'm worth so much because my paycheck says so. That one over there must love or hate me because I feel the same for them. That the system I serve must be valid because if that was not true, my life would be worthless. Paul Coates has taught me that none of that is true, or maybe that most of it is not. He has done so by working side by side with me, extolling the greatness of others doing similar work who served on the national, we served on the National Book Awards together. We've published together, introduced each other at various times. I love Paul Coates. I admire him. But most of all, I respect how he has imbibed the harsh liquor of true citizenship and survived. In other words, his life and work gives hope to anyone who would dare to explore the dark spaces between the lines that demarcate the lives. Paul Coates.
I really don't know who Walter was talking about. Man, when Walter has done introductions before, I'm usually looking for somebody to come in with a cape, you know, because he's talking about Superman, and I sat there shrinking in my chair, okay? But I thank you, and I thank everyone tonight for this honor. I'm going to try this teleprompter. I'm going to try to be braver than Walter, and I'm going to try to do this thing. So let me begin with a bunch of thank yous, and by acknowledging someone who is here tonight only in spirit. Glenn Thompson of Writers and Readers Press. Glenn was half insane and a fanatic about Black book publishing. Dan Simon, Kasahuncha Cole, and I flew to London in 2001 to be with Glenn as he became an ancestor. His spirit and his commitment to always move Black book publishing higher is ever present, and it's alive in this room tonight. I also want to thank my wonderful wife who's at the table with me, Rosalind Coates, for always supporting me in my doubting times and just being there as love for me. She represents love. I also love Walter Mosley. I mean, I really love this guy. We published Gone Fishing together 28 years ago, Gone Fishing and Easy Rawlins prequel. We came together and became friends and brothers. My journey through life is better because of you, Walter Mosley, and I appreciate you so much. And let me thank the National Book Foundation and its board for this year's celebration and for the work you do every day to make this world livable for the entire literary community. I thank you for that work and for your acknowledgement of me. Neil Baldwin, former director of National Book Foundation, Brenda Green from National Black Writers Conference, Troy Johnson of AALBC, and Publishers Group West, our distributor. Thank you guys for being here, lending me your support. Black Classic Press is part of a group of old-line Black book publishers that includes Third World Press, Africa World Press, and Just Us Books. These legacy publishers are survivors from the civil rights and human rights battles of the 60s and the 70s. Along with newer presses like Universal Right Press, we work every day to maintain and expand Black self-narrating voices. We each have different we each have a different focus. My focus is resistive Black voices that assert and confirm the right of Black people to advocate and express themselves in a world quick to deny our humanity. For Black people, our enslavement was what we call the Ma'afa, a great catastrophic event. To survive that great disaster, my ancestors had to have stories of something better, stories of the past and stories of the future, which during the Ma'afa could only be expressed aspirationally. Despite penalties of torture and death, those aspirations later found their way into print as stories about ourselves and our view of the world from our perspective. My ancestors understood the power in Frederick Douglass asking, "What to the slave is the 4th of July?" and Sojourner Douglas asking emphatically, "Ain't I a woman?" They cherished the fundamental rights of free people everywhere, the right to speak in our own voice, in our own style, without the permission of others, especially those who sought to keep us enslaved, ban our aspirations, our books, and our humanity. Using self-narrating voices in 1827, John Russwurm and Samuel Cornish founded Freedom's Journal. With the Declaration, we wish to plead our own cause. For too long, others have spoken for us. David Walker used that voice in 1829 and Marcus Garvey in 1919. Carter G. Woodson captured and used it in 1921 when he formed the Associated Publishers to publish books written from the perspective of our self-narrating voices. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Fannie Lou Hamer were those voices when they truth-told Black aspirations, sharing them with America and the world. It took me a while to figure out, because I am a late-coming follower, that I also am in that tradition. My mission is recovery and making Black self-narrating voices known to the world. I am not an interpreter. I prefer to let those voices speak to new generations for themselves. I obsessively curate those voices, especially the old, forgotten, radical, and less popular ones. The more obscure they are, the more important they are in my quest. Those voices are all Black classics to me. I publish them knowing that they are critical to fully understanding and making sense of the brightly colored mosaic that is American and world history. If those voices are not present, the result is a drab, washed out monotone of history, and a narration where some awful person steps up and insists that slavery was a necessary experience that taught Black people many valuable skills. I can't let that happen. To do this work and to be supported by my community as I have been since 1972, and to be recognized for that work tonight is humbling. It is also a reminder that all voices are important and that all stories are important. Thank you all, and thanks again to the National Book Foundation.